Hello, guys. This is your teacher, Abby Teach or Andrea. Hey, today I want to go over your InDesign assignment where you are to create a magazine. So for the first part of this, we're going to go over setup and using InDesign. So step one for you guys is to open InDesign. When it opens, it'll open like this. Yours will look a little different. I have projects that I've worked on in the past, and that's what's showing in mine. So if you were just showing blank, it's okay. You're in the right program. But the first, pretty much, you already know the screen. We had it in Photoshop. We had it in Illustrator. It's pretty much the same document screen that you get each time. But what we're going to do is we're going to hit Create New. And if for some reason you don't have that screen, what you can do is you can get to the same exact information. Sorry, I have two screens, so mine came on another screen. You can get to the same exact information by going to File, New. And then if you were to do it that way, you would get another dialog box. I'll show you in a second. But as a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and close this. And I'm going to go to File, New, just so that you can see the other document. So File, New Document. And it would take you right back to this dialog box that we had initially. All right. So what we're going to do, the version that I'm working is Adobe InDesign 2019. You might be working in 2020 or 2018, which is the one that we have at the school. There are a few differences, but all in all, for what we're doing, everything should be about the same. Some things might look a little different, but everything should work the same. So what I have on my other screen that you guys can't see is I have Blackboard open so that I can see exactly how I'm supposed to name stuff, what the size of everything is supposed to be, and that information. So what I'm going to do, I know that the intent is print, so I'm going to select that. It also says that the units need to be inches, so I'm going to make sure that the units are inches. It says that it should be letter 8.5 by 11, so I'm going to choose letter. And I see over here that it says 8.5 by 11. It also says portrait, and that's the default orientation, as you can see here. Then it says the bleed should be 0.125. I'm going to keep facing pages set up for this one. I'm going to go down to bleed, and I'm going to set this, make sure that this chain is linked, and mine is already linked, and it says 0.125. So all I have to do is hit tab and everything switches over from that. Okay. Also in here, my margins, the default margins are good. I just want to make sure you see that they're there. I can also check previews so that I can get a preview of what my document's going to look like. I can move this out of the screen for a second, and there's my document. I'm happy with it. Now, if you know the amount of pages that you're going to do, and in our case, we do know that our amount of pages is going to be 16. So right here where it says pages, I could go ahead and put 16 in here. Just for the heck of it, why not? All right, so I'm going to choose create. And then what we have here looks kind of normal to you, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to, oh, and let me make sure you're in the correct workspace. Mine automatically opened in book because I worked in here before, but if yours did not, go down to select book, and I will go ahead and hit reset book as well, just to make sure yours looks just like mine. So this is what yours should look like. Again, if you're in the older version or the newer version, there might be a few things that are different, but all in all, everything should be pretty much about the same. All right, so if I go into my pages panel, which is right here, I'm going to pull it out so that you guys can see what's happening. Remember, I told it that it had to be 16 pages. Yours, the minimum is 16 pages. The maximum, it can be larger. It just has to be in a multiple of 4. So as you know, if you say, oh, I want to go up from 16 to, it has to be 20 because that's the next multiple of 4. So really your minimum is 16. You just have to add 4 pages to however many more pages that you want to go up. If you want to go up to 24 pages, then of course it's a multiple of 4, so you're going to go to 24. All right. But 16 is your minimum amount of pages. Now we know from our setup in class that we set up our mock-up. And in our mock-up, that kind of told us what page 1 was the front cover, page 16 is the back cover, and so forth and so on. So we're about to do that in just a second. But what I want you to, matter of fact, let's go ahead and do that now. So on page 1, I'm just going to, any type, it doesn't even matter. I'm going to select page 1. I'm going to select the type tool. And remember, in InDesign, you have to actually draw out a text box. So all I'm doing is the same way we did with shape, is I have the type tool and I'm just drawing out a type box. Up here, I have the properties panel. Remember, it's context sensitive, meaning it changes based off a tool that you have. So right now I have the type tool selected, and you guys see that I have the options for my fonts, I have the options for the size, and all that fun stuff that has to do with type. I'm going to boost this up just because I know that I'm going to be using it often, and I'm going to make it bold just for now. So I just boosted up. I'm not worried about the font right now. This is not the font that I'm going to use. However, just for this, all we're doing is labeling. So I'm going to say that this is front cover. Okay. And I know that I'm going to use this a couple of times, so I'm going to copy this. Okay, so page 1 is the front cover. Page 2 is the inside of the front cover. All right, so I might go here. I might paste that in, and I'll just say inside front cover. Okay, I'm going to make sure that goes down to the next one. All right, so then I know page 3, that's going to be our table of content. Oops. So all I'm doing is hitting Control C because I already have it clipped in my, Control V, because I already have it saved in my clipboard from when we saved it to page 1. So page 3, this is going to be our table of content. So I'm just going to put TLC. And then page 4 is going to be the inside of our table of content. So I'm going to paste again. Okay, so what I had to do this time, I had to click on the black arrow because when I clicked on Control C, it wouldn't give me the option of pasting. So now I'm going to say inside TLC. And what this does is just kind of a guide for us as we go through our magazine so that we know what's happening. The purpose of this is that each new part or section of your magazine or book is going to start on the right side. The same way you read a book, this is what we're making sure that we create. So then on page 5, what we're going to do is, so we have our table of content. This is where we actually start our story, or we start what's called our chapter cover. So I'm going to paste. Remember that Control V again. See how I pasted it and nothing happened? Well, I'm going to hit the black arrow. I'm going to click on page 5 and hit Control V. So this is going to be our chapter cover. All right. So now I'm going to click on page 6, make sure it's active. This will either be the inside of our chapter cover, which is what, so I hit the black arrow. All right, so this is why those shortcut keys are super important. But anyway, I'm going to inside chapter. Now, those of you who were in class know that we didn't go this in depth. We didn't have time. So I like to go in depth when I'm teaching something for the first time, especially if it's online, because we have time online. All right, so I'm going to choose page 7, and this is going to be where our story begins. So I'm going to say story begins. Now, since I know that I have a lot for the story, I might go ahead and copy this one so that I'm not just typing story over and over again. So I'm going to hit Control C. Okay. And the way that I know that it's copied is I have the black arrow. Another thing that I want to go ahead and take time to explain real quick is InDesign looks at everything as an object. And then there are things that are inside of the object. So when we have the black arrow, we're actually selecting the object. Okay, we have the white arrow, we're selecting either points on the object or stuff inside of the object. But this is the object. So this entire box that is highlighted right now is our object. Okay, so I just want to make sure you guys are clear on that. All right, so on page 8, let's go ahead and place, and this is going to be our story, but this one is going to be story content. As for continue, I'm going to put that. So now I'm going to copy that one this way. I don't have to say it so much. All right, so our story is continuing. My story is continuing. My story is continuing. And then when we get to page 13, this is going to be where our index starts. So I'm going to hit Control V and I'm going to say index. And if you're wondering what in the world is an index, the index is what you see at the back of the book, and it lists everything that you want listed in alphabetical order. And I'm going to show you guys how easy this is to generate next class. All right, so I'm going to paste here, and this is going to be our index. Continue. All right, and then when we get to page 15, remember we have that back cover, and what's inside of that back cover is the inside of the back cover. So I'm going to go ahead and click here, paste, and I'm going to say inside back cover. Let me move this in a little bit. And then on page 16, I'm going to say back cover. All right, so now what we have, so that we're not confused, is we kind of have a guide so that we know what's going on each page. And if you work like this and you set up your guide, then it's kind of fail-proof, right? You're going to know exactly what goes where, what this page is designated for, and stuff like that. So make sure, this is why this labeling is important, also why the mock-up is important. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, now that we have this one, I'm going to go ahead and save this document. So I'm going to hit Command S if you're on a PC, sorry, Control S if you're on a PC, Command S if you're on a Mac. And what I'm going to do is I have a folder on my desktop called Desserts Magazine. So I'm going to make sure that I step inside of that folder. So whatever folder you're going to make for this, if you don't have a folder, go ahead and make your folder for it, because you can just click on New Folder and you can start making the folder for it. So I'm going to look at the document in Blackboard and see what it says to save this as, because we don't want to lose points because we don't have, because we didn't follow instructions. So we're going to make sure that we save this correctly. And it says your last name _ magazine _ final. So for me, it will be Bats Ladson _ magazine _ final. All right. So I have, again, your last name _ magazine _ final. This is how your document should be saved. All right. Making sure I'm inside of Dessert Magazine, I'm going to choose Save. All right, so now I have the magazine saved exactly how it says to save it. So what we want to do next, though, is I'm going to move this out of the way for a second. I want to make sure it's open. Actually, I'm going to take it off my board for a second. I'll bring it back. Well, no, because then I'll forget. And then I'll be like, oh, my gosh. So I'm going to nest it back down here where pages are. All right, so the next thing I want to go over is layers. So let's click in the Layers panel. Right now, we are set at layer 1. Here's what's interesting. If I click on an object inside the layer, right, we see that this blue meatball shows up, right? So the way that we know we're on a certain layer is this pen, see that pen that shows up? And the way that we know something is selected in that layer is this blue square that shows up. Now, InDesign works similar to Illustrator and Photoshop in that we have layers and we have sub-layers. So this top layer, layer 1, this is the layer. If I click on the caret or arrow to the left of layer 1, I see the sub-layer which says front cover. Okay, so these sub-layers that says front cover, these are the sub-layers to this layer. Now, the way the InDesign works is it only shows you the content on the layer of the page that you're actually on. Notice we only see on this page, we see the front cover, but you know that we made index and that we made, you know, our story and stuff like that, but we only see it when we're on that page. Okay, so that's very important for you guys to know. All right, so what we want to do is we want to get our layer management, and really all we have set so far are these guides. When I'm going to call layer 1, and if you want to rename your layer, you can just double click on the name layer 1. Make sure you're clicking on the name. What's going to happen is this dialog box will open up, and I'm going to call this guide. I'm going to call it guided pages. And if you like light blue, that's cool. If you don't and you want a different color, you can actually click on this drop down menu and you can change the color to coordinate with what looks and works for you. If you know that this is the guided layer and you really don't care about it, I might make it this orchard, which is like a brown. But also what you're going to notice, as soon as I hit OK, this object, right? See how it's blue right now? Is coordinating with the layer color, right? So the layer color that it is now. When I change it to brown, this is going to change to brown and this is going to change to brown. These color cues are super important in InDesign, Photoshop, and Illustrator because they kind of help guide you so that you know, oh, I'm on this layer. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK. Notice this turned brown and so did the layer. Okay, super important. Just want to make sure you guys understand that. I'm going to save this. Layer management is super important, and layer management is being graded in InDesign because it's just uber important to make sure that you understand that. All right, so I'm going to save this. Well, I have the guides here. I'm going to make a new layer, okay? Because the next layer that I want to make is going to be where we start setting up the information for our documents. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and set those up first. We're going to set up 4 new layers, okay? And actually, it's going to be 5 layers because we have master page items as well. So you know what? Layer 2, we want that all the way at the top. Okay, so let's go ahead and name this one text. And we may have to rearrange these, and that's fine. So we're going to name it text. And notice text is blue, but if I decide I want text to be a different color, I can double click on here, and I can say, well, you know what? Text is pretty important. Let me make text red. Okay, so that means when I have text, I'm going to know because it's going to come out red. All right, let's make a new layer. Double click on the name, of course, and we're going to name this one photos or images, whichever one works for you. I might change the color to orange for my images so that they're bright. I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to name this one graphics. Graphics I might make green. You know, I'm really just changing the color so that we have some type of verbal cues. I'm trying to think of what else. Text, photos, graphics. There is something else. I always do 4 layers. I can't remember. But anyway, I'm going to make another layer, and I'm going to make this one master page items. And I don't want it blue. Master page items, I kind of want pink. I cannot believe I can't remember what the other layer is. It's going to come to me because I need it. But anyway, so the text layer I'm going to put on top. And so the way that we move these around is we highlight the layer that we want to move. And we want to move this one right above graphics, but right below the master item page items. So when we move it, we'll notice that this line appears underneath that layer. So the layer that we want it underneath of, let's go ahead and move it. So I want it on top of graphics, right under master page items, and then it moves. So that part's pretty cool. I know what the other layer is. Usually I do captions if I have captions for photos, but since you guys aren't required to have captions, I guess we'll go with this. All right, so I'm gonna hit save so that my document saves. So now we have our layers managed, and what we're gonna do now is we're going to go into master pages. So when we go back to pages, I'm gonna pull pages out and expand it, of course. And I'm going to, so up at the top in the pages panel, you see this divided line. This top area is our master page area. This bottom area is our working page area. I'm going to move this down some because I know that we have some master pages that are coming in. You guys remember, as you recall in class, we kind of did this backwards, so we had some linking issues, but now we're going to do it the right way so we make sure that everything is done correctly. So we have this A master that usually serves as our main master page. So what this is going to be is, where we're going to make it is going to be our cover page. So let's right click. When you right click, you get some options. We're going to choose master options for A master. Okay, and A is fine, and we're going to say chapter cover. Okay, number of pages says 2. That's fine. We just hit OK. So right now, every page is following chapter cover, but we're going to do some stuff to make sure stuff happens the way that we want it to happen. All right, so let's choose new master. And this is going to be B. So all I did was, right click, new master. And this one is master page B. For this one, we're going to say our table of content. So I'm saying TLC. New master again. This one is going to be our, our table of content, our content. Let's do a new master. This one is going to be for our index. We'll do another new master. And this one is going to be for our back cover. Oops, I forgot one. I knew I was going to. So we have the chapter cover, but then we also have the story cover as well. So what we can do, I want to do it without having to change all of my letters. So hang on, let me see. I'm going to right click new master. And I'm going to say chapter cover. No, oops. Yeah, this should be chapter cover. That should have been book cover. Okay, hang on. So now I really need to make a change to number A. So I'm going to right click, master options, and then I'm just going to change this to story cover. Okay, so I have story cover, then I have table of contents, and typically I would have chapter cover next. So what I want to do is I'm going to move chapter cover. So I'm going to grab it and move it right underneath because it starts right before content. And that same line that you see, I'm going to move it right there where it says chapter cover. I don't like that my numbering is off, so typically I would change the numbering. And it's pretty easy to just change it. Just right click, master options. I can change that prefix to C. It's not going to like that. But it's okay though, because I'm okay with, no I'm not. All right, because it'll be confusing. I don't want to confuse you. Okay, so I'm going to hit C content, right click, options for C content. I'm going to put D. And then for index, right click, master options, E, and then for back cover, right click, master options, F. All right, so that right there, I'm good with that. A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay, sweet. All right, so now we have the master pages set, and see, here's what happens. Down here at the bottom, right now, they all have A's. So you see that? That's because they're all following story cover. But now at this moment, we can say, okay, B table of content is going to follow the table of content. So I can grab up here where it says B table of content, and I can bring it down to where we have that table of content. So see how I just grabbed it, dragged it, and I'm going to drop it on page 3 because that's table of content. Notice it follows, it gets the B. I'm going to do the same. And it doesn't matter which side you pull it from. InDesign is smart enough to know, okay, well, she's pulling it from table of content, so this is the left, this is the right. You know, it just does that. All right, and then for story chapter cover, we're going to go up here where it says chapter cover, and that's going to be on page 4. I'm going to put chapter cover there. I'm also going to put chapter cover on page let's say page 4. Sorry, page 5. I'm also put chapter cover on page 6. That's the back of the chapter cover. Then page 7 is where the story actually starts. That's going to be a content page. So I'm going to put content on page 7. And then, since I know that I have a lot, I'm going to highlight page 8 all the way through page 12. And what I'm going to do for those is right click and apply master to pages. So now this is going to apply that master page to all of them all at once. And that was D content. So I'm going to choose D content for 8 through 12. And you'll notice that pages 8 through 12 has that D content. You can do the same for page 13 and 14. Now that you know, select 13 and 14, right click. We can choose apply master pages. This is going to be the index, so this is E. So let's just select that, choose OK. And then we'll do the same for pages 15 and 16. Right click, we choose apply master to pages, and we're going to choose that E. Oops, this is supposed to be F back cover. Okay. All right, so we have our A, our B, our C, our D, which is our largest amount, our E, and our F. Sweet. Once we have that, choose Save. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go up to our A cover just to check it. Looks good, okay? For our B table of content, what we want to do with that one is really we're going to affect the right side, okay? What I usually affect with the table of content is pretty much just whatever margins, I might bring those margins in, just so that it's not so much text. So I'm going to highlight the right side of B table of content. We're going to go up to layout, margins and columns, and this is so helpful. It just gives us helpful little hints and stuff. We're okay with that. All right, so what we're going to do is make sure the chain is linked, and we're just going to bring in this table of content a little bit. Let's see, about an inch. I'm cool with that. If we wanted to have columns, we could, but we're going to do that on our index. This is okay for now. Hit OK. And now, so what happens with the table of content, if we want to check it and we go to B, we'll see that the table of content for B has changed, and we didn't change the table of content for the right side, we only changed it for the left side. So what we have to do is go back in the table of content, and we need to go back to our layout, and we need to go back to margins and columns, and then again we're just going to change it for an inch. We already know that it's going to be an inch now, and hit OK. And now the margins change for our table of content. So now we're going to check it again. We go down here, and it should have changed. It did not. Oh, sorry. I'm in the wrong area. Okay. So, and it changed. All right, sweet. So 4 and 5, we're good. If you want to adjust the text, you can. I'm okay with how it is right now. All right, let me see. For whatever reason, it's okay. I'm just going to let it go. So that's our inside table content. Then for our chapter, for our story, we definitely want to make changes to the story, because you don't want your reader to read from all the way to the left, all the way to the right in such a large area. Remember, this is 8.5 in width. And because their eyes are tired and they'll be tired and they really don't want to read that much. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up here to content for both of them, both sides. And we're going to go to layout, and we're going to go to margins and columns, and we're going to reduce these probably pretty drastically. So for the top, I'm saying 2, bottom, I'm saying 2. I am actually okay with 2 inches. I think that's enough for the story. We could decorate around it if we need to, or design around it if we need to. I'm in the Christmas mood, so decorating is what I'm saying. All right, so so that looks good. And then if we want to check that, we'll go down here to content, and we'll see that they've all changed and updated. So this is the purpose of master pages. You make a change in one, it changes everything that is linked to that master page. It's kind of cool. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is for our index page, we also want to divide this index page into 2 columns. Maybe we want to change the margins a little bit. Let's just check. So for our index, let's go ahead and select both of these, and let's go up to layout. Let's go up to margins and columns, and let's maybe go up 6.85. That's pretty cool. Now we're going to, number of columns in here, we're going to choose 2. And so that means that when it gets down to here, it'll go to the next column. Okay. And then we're going to, our gutter, I think we're pretty good with that. So, oops, sorry, didn't realize that was off screen. All right, so choose OK. So now for our index, if we go down to test this, we will see that the index is in columns. And for the back cover, we're good with its margins where they are. Typically for the front and back cover, I would actually reduce the margins. So for instance, 15 and 16, because usually it is an image, I would reduce it. But for now, I'm good with that. We're good. So I'm going to save this. So now this is the master pages. This is how they work. So when you're up here in master page, you're working on a master page. When you're down here, you're working on the working page. Keep in mind, whatever you do in the master page is affecting those pages that it is assigned to. So you want to make sure that you're working in the correct area. All right. And there are reasons behind that. And we'll get to that in a second. So as far as our document, let me see. Yeah, as far as our document, we have the document set up. This is at the point that we are ready to go ahead and start on our design. So as far as page setup, we are golden. Let's go ahead and go back to book, and let's hit reset book for now. And this is just so that we're ready when we get into the next video to go ahead and start designing. So as far as for now, make sure you hit save. We are ready to go into the next video where we'll actually design. So our document is set up for us. We're ready to rock and roll. All right, see you guys in a few.